Hello and welcome to Ionism. I'm your host, Ian, and you're listening to the Ionisms podcast, a podcast about society, art, entertainment, culture, movie reviews, pets, a little bit of geopolitics, and of course, our favorite cricket. If you haven't heard my other podcast, it's called Bus Talk. It's audio only. It's about all things at work. In fact, I talk about things that no one tells you at work. So if you do get a chance, hop over. The description will be in the link below. Well, in today's episode, I wanted to address a little bit about sports and geopolitics, right? So, cricket and politics go hand in hand in the subcontinent space. And now that we have the upcoming Cricket World Cup, clearly there's a lot of conversation going on. Now, the reason I wanted to have this short conversation with you today is to probably share a little bit from a regular citizen, Indian citizen, cricket loving citizen standpoint. I'm a sport lover, I'm an ardent cricket follower, global cricket follower, and of course, I follow India and Pakistan and Australia and all the top cricket teams a little more closely than I do other sporting events. But there have been a lot of narratives and commentary that is flowing out of Pakistan about how their team is being treated here in India. And so I thought I'd share a few thoughts about what we as regular ordinary citizens who have no political affiliations or any great leaning towards any either end, we're almost in the middle, just get on with our daily life and work and share what the regular guy thinks, if that matters or counts at all. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Well, I landed in Hyderabad a few hours before the Pakistani cricket team. I was at work. I was for a work engagement, and so number one thing I'd rest assured to the Pakistani audience, if they're listening to this, is your team is well taken care of. The airport security staff is top notch. The infrastructure along the way is fabulous. They will cross through the business district or the financial district, which is arguably some of the best real estate that exists in town, and they'll be put up in a decent hotel. The food in Hyderabad is exemplary, so you don't need to be worried about that. But let me start right at the airport. There was a very warm reception accorded to the Pakistani cricket team. And I was kind of saddened to hear the response from Pakistan. I'm sure not all, but many commentators said, oh, because it's a predominantly Muslim neighborhood, and so the Muslims will support Muslims. Small correction there. For us here in India, it's India first, and then whether we are Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, or whatever. That I don't think has any doubt, to the best of my knowledge and ability. It's very clear. So it's Indians first. So if there were Indian Muslims and Indian Hindus or Indian Christians or Indian Sikhs at the airport, you would know from the camera. It could have well been the situation that the crowd that was present all were Hindus. Could that not be a possibility? But fair to say that would be a good mixed crowd. What is important to realize that was an Indian crowd greeting a cricket team. Very different, right? It's a nice thing. It's a nice gesture to be appreciated and not dissected into whether they were of this community or that community or dissected into any other denominations or uh, combinations. A bunch of cricket loving people turned up to see a team which they have seen, probably admired, um, and a team which has got a country which has got a fair amount of curiosity. As much as you'd like to believe that Pakistan is the center of discussion points in India, for the regular folk like us, it is not. In the sense, yes, there is discussion when it happens in the north, say in and around Delhi or thereabouts. It's not to say the rest of the country is not concerned or bothered, because these topics are so sensitive. No matter what you say, it can be misconstrued in some way or the other. But fair to say, it's not like the topic to be discussed in detail, in depth. Of course, the news channels cover for whatever political commentary that happens there. But for regular folks, there is a Monday to go, there is a job or a business that needs to be attended. And so life moves on. The other change that has happened in India, say from say 2000s to now, or maybe 95s to say 2025, is the obsession with cricket or Indian cricket team winning or losing is relegated to some of the trolls that exist on social media, and they tend to make you believe that it is larger than life, but in reality on the street that isn't the case. I'm guessing that is the case in Pakistan as well. But the fact that you are 20, 25 crore people and India is 140 crores, so the numbers seem larger. But as a percentage of the population, it is fairly small, which is on Twitter, which makes a lot of noise. And you think that the entire country is thinking like that. I can safely share with you, it is not. Life continues. Yeah, there for cricket purists like some of us, we get disappointed in the way the team loses. Like for example, a couple of years earlier in Dubai, the way there was a 10-wicket defeat against Pakistan. Was there effigies burnt and madness that ran along? No. I mean, there was this odd discussion here and there, and people said, yeah, it's okay if you lose, but you cannot lose abysmally. You cannot lose in similar fashions. And that's just not against Pakistan. Same thing against England or Australia or any other team. The commentary that is that if you know that you're going to get out third, on the third stump, sorry, on the sixth stump outside your off stump, why would you want to go ahead and play this expansive cover drive? Don't do that. And if you get out repeatedly in the same fashion, that is what disappoints the true purist cricket fan. For the majority, they've shifted their attention from Test cricket to T20 cricket. And so, therefore, there isn't, yeah, okay, as long as you win the IPL, we are good. And then if you happen to win something else, great. So, again, point I'm trying to make here is it's a 140 crore country. 1.4 billion people is a lot of people. And so a small percentage of that, if they come on social media and make some noise, please do not think that the entire country, it's the entire country's sentiment. It is not. And so when there was this narrative on YouTube channels about how the Pakistani cricket team got received only because they were from a particular community. That does not hold true at all. So clear that misconception. Number two, I think there was a conversation around they as in the Pakistani cricket team not being offered the right choice of meat, beef in this case. Well, in India, there's a large section of the society which consumes beef. So you'd be very surprised that a lot of them are in south of India, in the hilly regions, in the mountainous regions, in the north east, and of course elsewhere as well, in Goa and many other states. Right. The thing is, there are laws in the country which specifically want they're geared towards reducing cruelty towards animals, and that cannot be wrong anywhere, right? I mean, you're just trying to be a little more humane. What could possibly be wrong in that? Yet, it is also an important point that one has to respect different cultural preferences and different diversity. And India is like the HQ of diversity. That is not the case in, say, Pakistan, for example, right, where a lot of the things are very uniform, or for that matter, in China as a comparative, there's less of diversity. Here, the diversity is massive. So, what applies to one state does not apply to the other state. What is culturally relative to one place is not relative to the other place. So, one has to get comfortable with this dichotomy. And this is always not reflected in the social media narrative because not all are represented there. There is not enough representation. So the counter argument could be yes, there should be more social media messaging, but there isn't. And then it's always the case that sensationalism gets highlighted over and above normal stuff. Like I draw like this is a no mumbo jumbo, simple, no frills, simple podcast, a straight heart to heart conversation, right? It probably will never go viral or have reach any other place, but that's okay. The idea is to, share as neutrally, which does not have any rhetorical or any big loud statement, just regular, normal conversation. And I'm fine if it does not catch anybody's attention either. But what does catch people's attention is when people make provocative statements like for TRP ratings and all. And some of the news channels that we have in our own country, there is a huge section of the audience which has not turned on the news channel for at least the preceding 5 years. They don't watch that news anymore. Part of the reason because they don't believe the way the news anchors present themselves. There is no civil discussion or uh, what's the right word? There is no discussion where all parties are equally and peacefully heard. And of course, they will have their counter argument and everything. There's a element of commerce involved in all of this. There's an element of mathematics that is involved, and which is what dilutes the whole purpose. And so we don't necessarily always believe what is shown on television. Does that mean all channels are bad? No, of course not. There are some good anchors, good channels, good shows. But for a third person singular from the outside the country, if you switch on one channel and show one particular narrative, like one thing I keep hearing in Pakistan media coverage is, oh, the Indian media was saying that ABC. I was like, but which Indian media are you talking about? If you're talking about one channel, then there are 357,000 other channels. That's not the same narrative. And to generalize, saying that if five channels are saying or 10 channels are saying the same thing, then other 100 are also saying the same thing. And even if they are, it's not necessary that the 140 crore people think the same way. So, very important to have these facts in place before casting an opinion. Now, I know if you make it too sanitized, there's nothing to report, frankly. Like if you rationalize everything, there's nothing to report, right? Yeah, a bunch of people said they didn't like this. And so that can't become on news unless you sensationalize it and make it bigger than it is. So it's important to realize where in a country where emotions are higher than rationale and logic, be a little more circumspect. And I'm referring to Pakistan here right now. In India, the tilt is little more on rational, like they say, kaam pe chalo, dhande pe chalo, as in what typically means get on with life, get on with work, so on and so forth. Not to say there isn't one in Pakistan, but I tend to get, as an outsider, I tend to get the impression that there is a larger emotion at play rather than reason and logic. And there's a belief system, and I'm no one to comment on how they have structured their strategy and everything. That's their country, so be it. But the misconceptions, misperceptions about our country, my country, sometimes is so far away from reality that, people like me, and I'm like a borderline ambivert, tilting towards introvert, very camera shy, not very comfortable with having such conversations. But I feel like at least I should do my bit to clarify my stance as a regular citizen. This is, please don't read more than what is actually happening at the ground level. So back to our Cricket World Cup. So that's the second part. Your team is well taken care of. They are uh, they are surrounded by a very heavy dose of security layers. There are people who are taking care of them. There is no animosity at a people to people level, which I guess some of you also agree. And that does not mean that we agree from the geopolitical standpoint. The other dichotomous reality is whatever is happening politically. It's not like it's somebody else's politics. Oh, those politicians. Well, we elected them, so they are in some sense our representatives, our voice. So it's a duality, and that's where it's very difficult. That is it is it fair to play a game of cricket for entertainment when people have died? That's one discussion that happens. And there is also the other discussion which says, well, if you don't continue life, well, where will you eventually resolve it? The question is, if the understanding is that this should never ever get resolved, then we should never ever play. But the fact that we are playing, that gives me the hope that today, tomorrow, day after, things will get resolved. it will take time. It's not something that will happen instantaneously, quickly, in a jiffy, a whole bunch of moving parts, a lot of which we are absolutely clueless about. As regular, ordinary citizens, we don't even know what's going on. It's all I heard so, he heard so, she heard so, and probably the sixth, seventh version is what comes down to public at large, that to informed public at large, and the rest of the public is probably not even made aware. So to for us to cast an opinion and say this ought to be done or this should be done, it's probably unfair. Right? We don't know if that's accurate or not. And so I refrain from making any political commentary from a national geopolitics level. But fair to say, from a cricketing standpoint, I have a fair understanding of the game, of what's happening in the city, in the country. And so, to all Pakistanis, if they're listening, your team is absolutely safe. There's nothing to worry. They are welcomed here in Hyderabad as well as they will be in Ahmedabad or in any of the cities, even if they were to play in Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, wherever. I think the citizens of the country have matured enough to understand that it's you've come here to play a game of cricket on invitation, and that's what it is. There is nothing one needs to read over and above beyond that. That being said, there are bad elements everywhere, bad apples everywhere. There are some bad elements here, there are bad elements there are bad elements in every single country in this world. So to so please do not get upset with one such stray incident or one such stray comment somewhere and say, look, I told you so. This is how the country is. This is how they behave. No, that's not how the whole country thinks and behaves, right? So sometimes bad things happen, but by and large, I can tell you that 90, 95% or even more, 98% of the country doesn't really think too much about Pakistan beyond the geopolitics, right? Yeah, cricket. If you beat us, for example, if you beat us in Ahmedabad and you go on to win the World Cup, will it hurt the cricketing fan? Yeah. But will it mean that you have won over Delhi? No. And I'd strongly recommend that that's a narrative that should not go back to Pakistan. And clearly, I have no say or control over that, but I'm 100% sure that if that were to happen, they'd probably say that Ghazwa in Hind is about to happen and all the narratives will overflow in full glory. But in reality, economically, we are still going ahead. We are on the right trajectory. It's incredibly difficult to run such a huge country in whatever way that you want to do, right? So I'm less critical of the way my country is being run because of the diversity it brings to the table in a democracy, in a not an ideal democracy, but nevertheless the right thing to do. And so we'll learn from our mistakes. We'll understand what's the better bet, but we clearly wouldn't want to go and quote unquote land grab anything anywhere. Is at least that faith I have, independent of the parties that come into power. There has never been an expansionist ideology because I think largely Indians have been happy with the way the country is or has been. And so I don't come across regular conversations and I travel fair bit length and breadth of the country. So tomorrow I have to capture this country, or why are we not capturing this place? There is no such conversation that happens. And so if in a game of cricket, Pakistan team plays better cricket on the day and wins, then absolutely I will clap for them. I'll say well played. And we also know that one swallow does not make a summer. We'll come back in another tournament, fight again, and see if we can win that game. On the flip side, if India wins the game, it doesn't mean that Pakistan has lost everything and there's no life ahead and they are not allowed to land in their own cities in Islamabad, Karachi, or whatever. They have to go through Dubai or something. Hey, it's all right. Still a game of cricket. People try. One team will win and one team will lose, and that's how it is supposed to be. So, on that note, let me say all is well. Let's hope for all remains well. So until we meet the next time, please feel free to share and subscribe to a set of people who care for this non-rhetorical, simple, straight talk. For those who don't, they don't. And so love to hear some of your thoughts and comments, if any. Otherwise, we'll keep in touch until next time. Peace out.